Didi, let me start by asking you, as a former Liverpool player, one of the greats from the Champions League victory all those years ago against AC Milan, how nervous are you and the Liverpool crowd about the situation the club is in right now? There was a wonderful moment at the end of yesterday's game when the television captured a shot of Kenny Dalglish in the stand, and it was a wonderful smile of relief on his face. He looked genuinely relieved and happy that they had absolutely pulled this out of the fire. How nervous do you think they are, and how is that affecting what's going on?
I think it was a huge relief for everybody concerned to the club yesterday, because a few minutes before it looked like they may lose the game and may stay a point behind Manchester City, with City having a game in hand, and then to get the late winner, I think was a huge relief, and I think a huge moment in their title race, because I don't expect both teams to win all the games from here on in. And psychologically, it's obviously a big thing, because they are, for another week, they are on top of the table now, even though City has got a game in hand. And I think the manager summed it up pretty well after it when he said, I said to the team, there's a lot of ways to win games, and sometimes to do it the hard way. They stuck at it. They've been up against a very good team, as we know, in Tottenham yesterday. It's another tough game out of the way. And I think they've got every right to dream now. Obviously, they know they've got a very strong opponent, Manchester City. But when you win these tight games, this is usually a very good sign.
Yeah, I agree with you about that. The Everton derby game, for example, at home, when Origi scored in the very last seconds, was another tight game that seemed important at the time. John Giles, with Leeds, many times you've been in this situation that Liverpool are in now. 6 games to go, title on the line, every point counts. How important is it to fall over the line like they did yesterday and get the points and not to worry about how you got them?
Well, I think it's great to do it, Eamon, but I would still be concerned about, as you say, how to do it. There's nothing better than playing well and winning well and deserving to win well, because there was a lot of luck yesterday. Spurs could have done it. Liverpool hung in there. He made a couple of changes at the time I didn't agree with. I don't think he's great under pressure, to be quite honest, Klopp.
Yeah.
But they got there. But there's nothing better, Eamon, than winning well, going on the right, have confidence, and win and deserve to win. Of course, you need a little bit of luck along the way, but they've had a fair bit. They've had Everton, they've had Fulham, they've had yesterday, and it's a bit too nervy for my liking, and I'm sure for the Liverpool supporters' liking as well. But they're still there, they're in there. But I'd rather see more composure and win matches and win them well, playing well and playing with confidence. That's the ideal situation. But they could have lost that match yesterday, as we know. They didn't. They got the 3 points, so they're still there. And that's the main thing for Liverpool at the moment.
Yeah, we have to remember as well, Didi, that Spurs are, they're a top 3, top 4, top 6 side. So it's not easy to roll them over. Just let me ask you, Didi, about the creativity in the Liverpool team. Early on, first half an hour, it was Alexander-Arnold on the right, the fullback, and Robertson on the left, providing danger, crosses, getting forward. As soon as Spurs were able to block that, and Pochettino made a couple of tactical changes to block that, Liverpool didn't have a lot. The midfield of Henderson, Wijnaldum and Milner is very solid, but there's no creativity there, is there?
No, there's not, and I think that's been the problem really over recent months. There was a reason Keita was brought in. He hasn't really arrived at Liverpool yet. He had a decent or a half-decent game. I think it was Bournemouth a few weeks ago, where he had his best performance, but so far he's been really a shadow of his former self, what he showed in Leipzig. I think a lot of the hopes will be relying on Oxlade-Chamberlain, who might be coming back soon and be a regular a regular play in that midfield, because they do lack, because you can't rely on the fullbacks and the front three all the time, because everybody knows how Liverpool play now.
Yep.
And that was the reason why I thought Bayern Munich, for example, may have the upper hand in that Champions League tie, because I think central midfield is Liverpool's Achilles heel. I think defensively they're very good. The forward line is very good. In the middle they're solid. But they lack somebody to get a goal or create a goal. And this is where they've been lacking. But so far, so good. They're still there. But I think from now till the end of the season, they probably need a few goals from the centre midfield. Where they're going to come from, I do not know.
Yeah, John, the other factor, I don't know what your thoughts are on that midfield. I mean, his options are Fabinho, Keita, who hasn't really done it, but looks as if he might. I'm not sure what other options he has. It's interesting that in the biggest games this season, Klopp has always started Wijnaldum, Milner, Henderson's at midfield three. He started them against PSG, against Napoli, against Chelsea, and against the two Manchester clubs. In all the big games this year, that's his go-to. So it seems to me that Klopp's idea is this: we're good at the back, we're strong at the back, we're deadly up front. If we just don't do anything stupid in midfield, if we keep it tight, we'll be okay. What's your read on that?
Well, I think that the players that you mentioned are reliable, Eamon. There's no doubt about that. And I think when you come to a big match, then you're going to play the reliable ones, because he doesn't have any outstanding midfield players. Fabinho, we don't know whether he's going to do it or not do it. And there's nobody else there who is capable of doing it. I say Keita has been there, but he hasn't done anything. So I think when he comes to the really big matches, he goes, okay, they're steady, these lads, they're reliable. So, I mean, what he's got to do, is, like most managers, get a good creative player. Now, whether Fabinho does that in the long run remains to be seen. But at the moment, they don't have it, Eamon. They are what they are. Milner's a great lad. Wijnaldum, Henderson, they do what they do, but they're not going to create anything for you.
No.
You know, and you are then dependent, obviously, on playing well at the back and relying on the lads up front. And that happened yesterday. I mean, Salah hasn't been playing well, I mean. You know, I'm reading the papers this morning, and he said how great he was for the good header he got. And whether the reporter seen it or not, I mean, it was a terrible mistake by Lloris, you'd have to say, to let them in. I mean, Salah hasn't actually been playing well. But again, you know, like the forwards generally, I think the Liverpool forwards have done remarkably well, because it's usually midfield players who make it for the forwards.
Yes.
You know, and really they're doing it on their own now. They're steady in midfield, but definitely not creative. And you know, it's very, very difficult to win the Premiership in that situation. And that's why they're doing as well as, doing much better probably than they could be doing if they had a real creative force in the middle of the field. So it's not easy to get Eamon, but I think that is the situation there.
Yes, Didi?
Eamon, just one thing in these guys' defence. When you've got a midfield of Henderson, Milner, Wijnaldum, I think Wijnaldum is probably the most offensive of the three, even though you wouldn't call him an attacking or a creative midfielder.
I like him.
You've got to say they all.
I like Wijnaldum.
But they are all, well, certainly Milner and Henderson are defensive-minded players. In their defence, you've got to say, I think this midfield is part of the reason they conceded a few goals, even though they've got in Matip, who's done well in recent weeks, Gomez when he played early in the season, and obviously Van Dijk, they've got in the keeper. But I think what they do, these three, is they give the fullbacks the freedom to go forward.
Yes.
And I think he realised that he hasn't got a creative midfield at the moment who can make things happen. So he's going with a solid base. He's going with a defence-minded central midfield.
Yeah.
And that gives Robertson and Alexander-Arnold the freedom to bomb forward, because they've shown a lot more creativity, these two fullbacks, than whoever played in central midfield together.
Yeah. Just a question, Didi, about Mo Salah. He hasn't scored for 8 games now. I love him. I think he's a wonderful footballer. But it to my eye, and I'd like John to comment on this as well, but I'd start with you, Didi. To my eye, Salah looks like he's lost his confidence. He's very nervous when he's on the ball, and he's a kind of touch player. The last thing he needs is nerves. He needs to be cool under fire. And he looks to me like he's gone off the boil in a big way because he realises how big this prize is.
There might be some truth in it. I think it's obvious that he's not been the same. Then again, he was putting the bar very, very high last year because he scored so many goals and he almost scored every week. I was quite surprised, I've got to say, because he's not been playing as well as he did last year. But I looked at the stats this morning. He already got 17 goals again in the league.
Yes,
which is no mean feat. And I think he's only 2 or 3 behind Aguero, so he may well end up being top scorer again. And so we criticise at a very high level here.
Yep.
But I agree. He's an instrumental part of the front three. He's outshone by Mane in recent months.
Yes.
And by Firmino for that matter. And whatever the problem is, I do not know. Maybe he got all the limelight. Maybe he doesn't seem to strike me as a selfish player who wants the limelight. But maybe that's got something to do because the headlines at the moment are with the other 2 guys he's playing next to him.
Yeah.
But it's clear that something seems to be lacking there at the moment.
Yeah, John, your take on Salah at the moment?
Well, first of all, he's for Salah to score, it has to be perfect, and I'm talking about his touch and his approach to the goal. I mean, if you have a picture in your head of Salah scoring a goal, it's getting through, beating the player and side-footing it past the goalkeeper.
Yeah.
Now, there was a match a couple of weeks ago, he got through twice. I can't remember which match it was. He got through twice, and his second touch on the ball was about, a little bit off, and the goalkeeper made a couple of saves on him.
Yes.
And he has to be perfect in what he's doing. If you get, say, Harry Kane will score from outside the box and he'll go through and he'll whack it. Like Salah's touch and approach to the goal and goal scoring has to be perfect. And in recent weeks, it's just been a touch off. I think one of the goalkeeper stopped it with his foot. I can't remember which match it was now. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Like getting through. Like last year, his second touch was perfect, and he just had enough room to side foot past the goalkeeper. Now, if it goes a little bit too far, his second touch particularly, he's just that little bit near the goal. So he's almost there, Eamon. I don't think he's lost his nerve or anything. He's lost his touch a little bit, which obviously doesn't do his confidence any good. But as Didi said, he scored 17, 18 goals this year.
Yeah, so
he could score more.
Yeah,
he could score more, Eamon. But to be fair to him, yesterday, and the way the game went, there weren't that many chances for Liverpool because Spurs got back on top. But I think any day he could come good, Eamon.
Yeah.
Any day he could come, and he still scored in his fair share. Anyway, but not quite as good as last season. But that technique that he has, getting through, beating the player, approaching the goalkeeper, and when he's at his best, he's side-footing the passes if the goalkeeper's not there. If that's just half a yard off on his second or one of his touches, it makes it very, very difficult to him. So he's a different technique. Like most players have different techniques to scoring goals. But that's his technique. But it has to be perfect, Dave.
Yeah, there's no margin for error. Didi, again, for you and John, I think the Liverpool goalkeeper is flaky, Alisson. Again, yesterday, early on, twice. I think he's flaky, Didi. I hate to say it. He's
even against Bayern Munich. There were a couple of incidents where he's very casual with the ball at his feet.
Yeah.
And I think whether it's coming down to concentration, because what you shouldn't forget, he played at Roma. He played at a good team last year. But at Roma, he would have been tested 5, 8, 10, 12 times a game.
Yes.
Now, with the defence Liverpool has got and with the way they're set up, he doesn't get tested very often. And I think there's a certain mindset required. And people always say, well, it's good to be a good keeper for Bayern Munich or for Manchester United in years gone by and for the top teams. No, it's the hardest thing because you may only be called upon once, twice, 3 times a game.
Yep.
And it's got to be there. And I think it's a concentration issue more than anything else, because it's always easier to be a good keeper when you've got 20 shots on goal.
Yep.
Because you warm you in the game and you get a you have a save to make every 3-4 minutes. I'm not saying it's easy, but it's easier to have a good game because naturally out of 20 shots you will save 18, 19, all 20. And I think his concentration levels, I think he finds it hard sometimes to stay with it. And sometimes he's doing daft things because I always got a feeling where he thinks, well, I've had nothing to do now for about 20 or 25 minutes, never touch the ball. I've got to do something flash or something fancy, even when I've got a ball at my feet. And that's certainly not what is required.
John, do you detect a touch of the flakiness? And you'd be the world's leading expert on flaky goalkeepers, having played with the late Gary Sprake, God rest him.
I think that's a good assessment from Didi. It's all concentration, Eamon. And, as we know with footballs, but goalkeepers in particular, because they made the slightest mistake, it's going to cost you a goal. And it could well be that he's not doing anything for a long time. But he's got, he's got to get his head around that, and the manager's got to get his head around it, or else it could cost him. And there's a couple of times, even yesterday, it could have cost Simon, which is not good. And as you described it as flaky. And I think Didi would describe it as being complacent and not keeping his concentration right. Whatever it might be, it has to be put right, because it could come to one game, even one game this year, Eamon, and run into season where he makes a silly mistake and could cost you the league. So he's really, really got to get his head right, and I'm sure Klopp would be on to him to do that. But it could be very, very important by the end of this season.